Joe Steckler, the host of Helping Seniors of Brevard. And here is your host of Helping Seniors of Brevard, Joe Steckler. Hi, Joe. How are you doing today?
Hey, hi, John. Think I'm doing pretty good today. You always make me sound like I'm doing this by myself, but I'm not. Recently, we've always had Dr. Kerry Fink of TYG Media, who is our media director for Helping Seniors. We've had him here in the studio with us because he brings just as another element to our show. And we've got a two-part show today with Dr. Lee Sheldon doing a dental part on the first half, and I hope he's standing by. Are you, Lee?
I'm here.
Oh, wow. Okay. And then Dr. Kevin Kilday, who is a doctor of holistic medicine, he's going out in the second half of the show. And before we even start, I'll just remind everybody that Helping Seniors is designed to inform, educate, and help people get connected with services they need. And I will tell you honestly, over the last 3 or 4 months, I've seen so many different calls come into our office where people need different kinds of help. And I assure you that a program like ours is really needed for senior citizens. It's extremely important, folks. And I'm not just saying that to say it. I'm saying it because it's true. But I also want to point out something that Dr. Fink handed me before we went on the air, and this talks about Dr. Sheldon's son, Dr. Matt Sheldon, who was selected as one of the top 40 dentists under age 40 in the USA. And congratulations there, Lee.
Yeah, Pop's pretty proud of that.
That's what we were saying.
I'm amazed that he's under 40.
What's that?
I'm amazed he's under 40. As old as you are, I thought he'd be older.
Thanks a lot, Joe. He was our third kid, don't forget.
I know, but you know, Dr. Sheldon.
I just celebrated a big birthday yesterday.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
But
But what a great birthday present to have your son being awarded that position of one of the top 40 dentists under 40 in the country. My God, what better birthday present could that be?
Well, I made you work on me, and I sure like your shots. And I know that skills get passed down, and Matt had probably learned a lot from you, Lee, and that makes a lot of difference in how we approach things. And I know on the first part of this show today, we're going to talk about an article that you are got coming out in the Senior Scene magazine next month, and it's a, you're talking about connecting with your dentist, and a lot of people don't think about that, Lee. We if we don't connect with our doctor, our primary care doctor, we got a real problem, because we think about in terms of that whole body health care contributing to our longevity here on this earth. But the same thing might be said about dental care, and how it's extremely important to recognize the advantage of being able to trust your dentist, making decisions about pulling teeth, implants, what type connecting fillings and stuff, or connecting teeth to adjusting teeth, abutments and all this stuff. I've learned some of the dental technology. I was sitting in that doggone dental chair for so many times over the years of my life that I did remember to listen to some of the stuff they told me. And but what do you mean, really, when you're talking about matching our core values and connecting with a dentist?
Well, I got to tell you, Joe, that this was an essay that I wrote originally to other dentists, and then I said, wait a minute, doesn't this apply to patients interacting with dentists as well? So originally I wrote this with the idea that not every dentist or not every doctor or not every anything can be the same thing to everybody. All of us have different values. And so we have to be able to select professionals in any discipline based on the values that we have ourselves. Otherwise, there's going to be a conflict. When you see conflicts occurring, usually the core values are different. So let's assume that we're looking at in a dental practice. If you find in a dental practice that different people within the dental practice are speaking different ways, or if there are disagreements, and you can get those disagreements when talking with the staff. You know, the staff says, well, I don't know, or the staff may say something different from what the doctor has said, then it means that there isn't an easily identified core belief or principle. And therefore, we're left to kind of figure out what the real core belief and principle is. And if the doctor has never declared that, nobody else knows it. So
if you
end up with confusion as you're talking with staff members. Staff members will then say something different from the doctor, or might even not pay as much attention as you would hope that somebody would pay attention to you. And they become very confusing, and you can sense that. You know, and when you sense that, then either it's time to have a discussion with the doctor and say, hey, listen, my beliefs are this, what are your beliefs? Or it's time to find a new doctor. The most difficult problem that we have is not dental care. The most difficult problem we have is communication and understanding who we are as individuals and how we relate to each other. Once that problem is solved, the dentistry is pretty easy to do.
Are you talking about staff and dentist being on the same page so that the patient understands what he's being told?
Absolutely. And I've seen it the other way. In fact, I've seen it the other way in my own practice. One reason that we may have some popularity may have more to do with the rigid discipline that we have within the office to make sure that everything is written down. We go by checklists. Every procedure has an entire chapter devoted to it, so we've written down how we do each of those procedures so that everybody's on the same page. Yeah, I think it makes a big difference.
Well, I know that when Terry and I moved here to Satellite Beach in 1988, when I retired from the Navy, we had some kind of a dental plan, and it led us to a doctor named Dr. Mason, and we really liked the guy because he when you walked into the office and sat down in the chair, you were eager to hear what he was going to say about what he was going to do because you trusted him, and you knew his staff and you knew him, and over the years we came to trust more and more, and then all of a sudden he was gone, and a new Dr. Mason came in, but it turned out we were very, very fortunate because the new Dr. Mason thought just about the same way as the old Dr. Mason, and we really, really enjoyed him over the years, and then he left and they got a new dentist in, and it was about that time that I needed some work that I didn't really think they could do, so I talked to you about it because it was implant work. And you said, yes, you could do it and you would do it, and then I went to you, and I felt very, very, I don't know, I'd always watched you with your staff, and I felt that you all were always on the same page. And that made a lot of difference in how I felt about who was going to do my dental work. And then when you start talking about dental surgery and cutting bone and growing bone and doing all these things, it's important that the patient understand what the doctor is saying to him. Kerry's nodding his head. Kerry, what do you think?
Yeah, I was just going to say I had the privilege of attending one of Dr. Sheldon's seminars where he was presenting on dental implants and somewhat of the science and just basically getting an audience up to speed on all the advances and things in dental improvement. And he was careful to bring in a lot of the staff members, and what it left you with sitting in that audience was not only did Dr. Sheldon and the team of dentists there know what was going on, but the staff really seemed to know what was going on too. So you had a high degree of confidence. And I know probably, Dr. Sheldon, you're not able to do those in person right now, but I mean, I thought that was one of those things where you could really see that interplay between from the doctor's role, meaning you and Dr. Sheldon and Dr. Furtado, but also with the rest of the staff, how you guys work together to make sure the patient's interest is number one.
Yeah, it's true, and there are some. If you talk to staff members, you'll find out that that's more readily done in some offices than others. I know that in some offices, dental assistants almost isn't allowed to talk, in front of the patient. Once the doctor's there, then the doctor does all the talking. Years ago, and they really came from my office manager, Danielle. Danielle started to take the side of the patient. In other words, she knew that patients are reluctant to ask questions because the patient feels that it may be a stupid question. Mm-hmm. And so Danielle started asking the questions that she thought a patient might be thinking and started to represent the patient that way, which actually put me on the spot because then I had to answer questions logically so that the patient could understand it. That takes some practice. It actually does. Because we're so used to speaking in our own lingo and assuming that everybody understands what we're talking about, that that it's difficult to put it in easily understandable language. The procedures that we do are not that complex. In fact, the procedures that anybody does, even the most complicated medical surgery, they're not that complex that we can't explain it and explain the logic of it to somebody. But it does take some discipline and to do that. And so when Danielle didn't understand what I was saying from the patient's standpoint, then she would ask me more questions until I was able to clarify it to her. And really what we were trying to do was clarify it to the patient. Mm-hmm. And once that happens, the greater the understanding the patient has, the better the chance the patient has of deciding whether this procedure is for him or for her.
Absolutely.
Hey, okay, Dr. Sheldon, but when you in the article that you put in the paper, and I want people to understand this because when they read it, I want them to understand what it is that you wrote. You said you had 6 tenets that you go by, and you said see if they match yours. And on the 6 things you said, every thought had core belief in it. And how do you relate core belief when you're talking about methodology and you're talking about a delivery system that fills a tenet of the core belief or principle, a quality control system, and an executive system that makes all these things happen the way you want the patient to walk away with a good feeling? How does that core belief, what do you mean by that?
My core belief, so let's talk about what the core belief is in our office. My core belief is the patient is a colleague of mine and is looking to me for direction and enlightenment. The second core belief is that that it's more appropriate to save teeth when possible than to extract teeth in favor of dental implants. If we just look at those two core beliefs, then it kind of differentiates my core belief from what you might see advertised by others on TV. So, it's so easy to look at TV these days and see that people believe that dental implants are better than teeth. They're not better than teeth. They're good, but not better than teeth. But the way you see it advertised, dental implants are better than teeth. When a person comes in, if my core belief is I believe in saving teeth if possible, predictably, then they've already seen that my core belief is different from what they've advertised on TV, even though we can do the same, and we do the same procedures that they do on TV.
That is so important because I remember again sitting in the dental implant seminar that you gave in the community for people to kind of just get an understanding of it. That's one of the things I've seen not only there, but I've seen you do the television with Joe where you talked about. I think there's a TV program titled "Why Dental Implants Aren't Always the Best," and it's very interesting that you take that approach because it is, like you said, contrary to what you see so often advertised. It's just like, here, we can rip your teeth out and stick these in and you'll be good to go.
Well, Kerry, I think what this is something you could talk about. I'd like to hear it. Your answer on this. You present something to a patient that sort of says, "This is what I think would be best for you," and whereas a number of other people we see advertising doing implants on a television say, "This is the only thing that's going to happen. It's going to solve your problem, and this is what I can do for you." There's a difference into how you approach it and how they approach it. I guess maybe the best way to say it is that these ads say, "This is what must be done," and you say, "Let's take a look and see what must be done." Make sense?
That's correct.
So does that go back to the core belief?
It's different from those people who advertise on TV. My core belief is that the patient is a colleague of mine. The patient has the opportunity of seeing pluses. I just had a patient today. She said, "I want to have this tooth taken out, and I want to have 2 dental implants placed." And I looked at her, and her medical history certainly wasn't one where I would agree with that. I thought it was more risky. And number 2, she had a belief that the tooth couldn't be saved, and that's because nobody told her how to save the tooth correctly. So instead of spending what would be almost 3 times as much for treatment that would medically compromise her, I'm able to do something at a lower fee. Now, am I a hero because I do it at a lower fee? No. Am I a hero because I decide to save a tooth rather than do a dental implant? Well, maybe. But the biggest thing is that at least I communicate the advantages and disadvantages of each approach so the patient can make a logical decision. I think, and I think we have to work better on not only establishing a core belief, but we also have to work harder at communicating that core belief so the patient knows whether he or she is in the right place. I'm not the right place for everybody. I promise you that. My office is not the right place for everyone. But to the degree that our core beliefs match, then it can be the right office for someone.
Well, I think that goes back, Lee, to the fact whether or not I'm going to say, whether you're going to a private practice like you have or you're going to a dental mill. And unfortunately, many of us end up in dental mills because we don't know the difference between exactly what you're talking about, core belief. And that just... It's really hard to communicate something like that to the general public, just like we are helping seniors. If we could get people to believe and understand the importance of being correctly educated about what you're doing to your body, what you're doing with medications, what you're doing with the different types of dental work you're having done, what kind of heart kind of work you're having done, what kind of medications you're using. There's just so much. There's so much that it's come out lately that we're asking the public to assimilate a heck of a lot of information.
I think you're right, and I think helping seniors is a great analogy here, because within helping seniors, we have a number of people who have signed on to the helping seniors philosophy. Yet we are competing. I mean, those of us who are helping senior supporters. Yet we're competing with what may be a different message on the outside. It's difficult, Joe, when we try to take a 30-second commercial and try to make that identify with us. After all, the commercials are produced in order to be able to get somebody to come into our office or to come into our business. And yet, with helping seniors, we're not looking at commercial. We're looking at matching needs with businesses or providers that will fulfill somebody's needs. It's a totally different philosophy, and it much more closely matches what we're talking about here with core beliefs or principles. We wouldn't sign on to helping seniors Brevard if we didn't have core beliefs and principles that weren't shared with you.
Yeah, there is a thought here as you're talking about this. One of the things that Joe and you are speaking to is, I think, one of the core principles is you listen to the patient, just like if somebody calls the Helping Seniors helpline, Kim listens to the caller. Whereas the other approach seems to be, let me tell you what you need. And that might be correct, but it might not be, because you haven't heard what the person who's asking the questions really is wanting to try to figure out.
That's true. It's the reason for a second opinion. It's a reason to read and read objective journals. It's a reason to study before you make a decision.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was thinking about that. I can't tell you how often Kim hears from callers when they call in on the Helping Seniors information line that somebody said, you're the first place I've talked to that has actually heard or taken the time to listen to what I'm asking you about. Because every place I call, they either say, oh, call this number, or, here's what you need to do, and they hang up the phone. And so what I hear when you're talking about this, about the core values, I think that's a shared core value that we have as an organization, but also clearly that you have in your practice.
Yep, I agree with that, Kerry, and it's so important. And frankly, it doesn't take that much time to do research. You spend a lot more time digging out of a hole than you ever do doing research at the beginning to make sure you want to enter that hole. So, spend a little bit of time at the beginning. You'll save a lot of time at the end.
Okay, Lee, thanks so much today. I know you have something you have to do and you can't do the whole show, but I want to thank you, and I really appreciate your willingness to help promote our car raffle for the new start that's coming up. We're getting ready, and we'll get new tickets over there to you, because it's really important that businesses and everybody else supports us, because we need to get this word out, because this organization needs to continue to exist, and you've always been one of our supporters. In fact, you're one of the very few organizations that I'm aware of in Brevard County that supports as many charities as you do through your dental exam program, and that's you're really to be commended on that. And you don't talk about it very much, but I sure can talk about it and say how much it's appreciated.
It goes back to core values.
Yeah, right. Okay. Okay, we're going to take our mid-show break now, and we'll see you next month, Lee, but I hope to see you before then. And give our best to Eleanor, okay?
Very good to talk with you.
Okay, bye-bye.
You're listening to Helping Seniors of Brevard with Joe Steckler. Once again, here is your host of Helping Seniors of Brevard, none other than Joe Steckler.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John. I sure enjoyed the first half of the show with Dr. Sheldon. I'm looking forward to this part of the show with Dr. Kevin Kilday, who is a doctor of holistic medicine, and he's writing an article for Senior Scene magazine. It's going to be titled "The Spiritual Impact of COVID-19." And when you think about that, there's an awful lot that we fail to talk about when it comes to what is happening with people over the last 5-6 months. We're talking about depression. We're talking about staying in the house. We're talking about not being able to do the normal things we do. And recently, Dr. Kilday, Terry and I went across the street to our neighbor's house on a Saturday night. Took a wine bottle over for my wife and took a Coke for me. And I'm kidding. But But we sat there in a circle, 6 to 7 feet apart. There were 10 of us there. And we sat and talked. And we were actually there almost 3 hours of just talking. And it just felt good when we went home. We talked about how good it was to just get out with the neighbors and talk, and not get too tied up in Netflix and me sitting in a chair, because most of you know I got a doggone knee problem, and it's hard for me to get around. And I'm hoping I'm going to get that fixed, but I'm not sure. I'm getting more scared as I get about it. We talk about core values on dental day. I'm talking about core values on my knees, and whether I know what the core value is and getting them fixed.
Well, they do amazing things with surgery on knees these days, so.
You had it?
No, I didn't have it done, no, but I mean, there's so many sports, athletes out there that have had it, and, they really got it down to a science, so.
I know, but that's when we talk about different things in education. I'm finding out that when you get into sports medicine and orthopedic surgeons, and those guys are the ones that are so innovative and have made some of these new procedures possible for athletes and everything, and for being able to being able to get people to avail themselves of these new services, and that's something we need to think about. It's just like we apply that to holistic medicine, but more importantly, we talk about, let's really focus in on what your article is, because I like to, when you talk about the spiritual impact of COVID-19, too many times we just fail to talk about the importance of the part that God plays in all that we do and all that happens to us and all that we're able to overcome.
Yes, this COVID-19 is bringing out so many things in people. I mean, it's and people are having a hard time adjusting. They say it's that this is the new normal. Until they come out with a cure or a vaccine. So it's I mean it affects me too. I mean it's like even when I have consultations now with clients, I still have live consultations with clients in a room face to face. But I ask them to wear a mask, and we're in a large room, and I make sure that they're sitting at least 6 feet away from me, and and the room is always wiped down after every session. So so we're following all the safety guidelines, and but I also have now Zoom available and other things. But getting back on the subject, I like I was telling you earlier, I've written about the the impact of it, and what we can do to to improve our immune system. So maybe we our body can just naturally defeat this virus if we came in contact with it. And I've also written recently about the mental health issues that the mental health experts are saying that everything is on the rise. Depression is on the rise. Addictions are back on the rise again, and just the whole mental health. Across the board, anxiety and PTSD and everything. They're getting record number of calls on the on these helplines and stuff. So I've written about that. So it just came to me, last week when I was preparing to write an article. I said, well. What about the spiritual impact, of this problem? I mean, how some of the questions that people are asking themselves is really how should I, how should I feel? I'm feeling, I'm feeling isolated. I'm feeling cut off from my, from my family, and and I can't even go to. You don't know if your city or your state is allowing you to, to go to church like you normally do. Either you got to practice the guidelines, or they're having service outside, or a lot of churches just ain't having service at all, and it's not the same to watch a service. On Facebook or online. I mean, it's a substitute, but it's just not the same with the being with the congregation and the camaraderie that you have, seeing each other, once a week and listening to, to live, praise and worship music, and I think it just has an impact on people, and people start asking themselves, where is God in all this? I mean, are some people start thinking, are these the end times, or else they, they're blaming God for, parents have to be, working at home and homeschooling their children and trying to do their job if their job allows them to work at home, and I mean, I'm not there. I'm close to a I'm a grandparent age, but I don't have any grandchildren yet. But I can imagine just what the younger generation. I mean, I thought I had to juggle a lot of things, when I was younger, but it's a whole different set of things they have to juggle today, and
Well,
it's a lot more challenging times.
I understand, and I happen to be Catholic, and all my life I went to church every Sunday. The only time as a grown man, the only time that I remember, of course, when I was a young kid at home, it was just unheard of not to go to church, because if we faked it and Mom caught us faking it, we were really in trouble. So we didn't even try it. We all just went to church and came home and had breakfast. We didn't have a car. We walked to church and came home. But after I graduated, of course, I went to Naval Academy. I made a promise to God that if he got me through the Naval Academy, that I would go to church every day. And that meant getting up at 5:30 in the morning and going to Mass. And my whole time at the Naval Academy, 4 years, I missed three days of going to church, and that was because I had some teeth worked on, and they wouldn't stop bleeding. And so I wasn't able to go to Mass. But subsequent to that, I've always been able to go to church, except at the time when I was on a submarine. We were on patrol overseas. But with this coronavirus, and then the bishop giving permission for Catholics not to go to Mass and not have a count against them, we availed ourselves of that service, and my wife and I talked about the differences that, just as you cite, we miss the actual going to church.
Right.
And then a couple of Sundays we went, and then this spike took place again. We said, well, are we doing the right thing or not? And so we stayed home, and it turns out that about the same number of people are going to church. But on the 2 Sundays that we did go, I looked around, Kevin, Dr. Kilday, and I looked around at the number of people there in church, and there were a lot of young people in church. And I was very surprised. And a lot of them were young couples that the wife was pregnant.
Right.
And they were, I think they were putting their trust in God. And that's exactly. Kerry, you're nodding. What are you thinking?
100%. I was going to say, from my perspective, this is a time that everybody understands. I said this early in the outbreak. I think this is a time when everybody understood their life is more than getting the next roll of toilet paper. How quickly we have forgotten how difficult that became for a few weeks.
Right.
But so there's more to life than toilet paper, and it leads to the question, well, what is life about? And I think what you're speaking to is the Bible says, forsake not the gathering, and that is because we need each other. I mean, that's a thing that is this way we're wired, and it's almost regardless of your particular brand of faith. It's just something God put in us. We need each other. That's why an organization like Helping Seniors exists. We need each other. It's why the churches exist. And I was thinking, like, even in the Catholic faith, think about how we do a church service when we're together. In the Catholic service, it's give each other the sign of peace. In our church, it's hug your neighbor and tell them I'm glad to see you in the service today. But it's the same thing. It's a human connection. That's very difficult during all of this.
Right, and
it's just not the same on TV.
No.
Right. And people got to realize that that God is always there. He's always there to call upon Him for some peace. The help. Just to help in any any way that He can. It's just through prayer and. I mean, it's even a good idea to, just to call another believer and just get, on the phone with them, because, most people don't realize that a church only requires actually two people, just two people who are believers. And the church, the Bible actually calls it an ecclesia, which is a called out assembly of believers. But, there can only be two, there could be as little as two believers in a room. And then that means you're doing church or doing Bible study or, doing a prayer meeting or whatever it takes. And so, it's very important to keep the faith. I mean, a lot of people have heard that. And, and people who are losing hope, let's say, but may it be a mental health issue or just about ready to just, throw in the towel, don't do that. Reach out to another person, even if they're a non-believer, just reach out to somebody or call, a hotline of some sort. Just get on the phone or get on the, on the internet and just reach out and touch someone because, yeah, that used to be a slogan, wasn't it? Reach out and touch someone. Because it means a lot for your general overall holistic well-being.
Well, that's a good point to make when you talk about holistic medicine. Holistic medicine, and I think that I'm coming to understand it more. Holistic medicine is not just about herbs and things like that. Holistic medicine can mean how do I treat my body and what kind of frame of mind do I try to establish for myself so that I'm helping my body adjust to the situation I find myself in.
Right, because for true health, it all has to be in good condition. You have to be in the best you can do physically. The best you can do, mentally and and spiritually. That's what the holistic is all about. Like the whole person. That's what holistic practitioners like myself. When people come to me with a physical problem, one of the things I always ask them, especially if they're like one of my specialties is alternative cancer therapies. And one of the things I ask them, you're here to see me to help you with some alternative ways of helping you with your cancer. I ask them, how do you feel since you've been diagnosed? And I ask them questions so I can look for their mental outlook. Because that's very important when you're fighting really any disease. You really have to have that that fighter mentality. A lot of people just go to the doctors and just say, "Oh, the doctor will give me a pill and cure me." That's not going to happen. The chances are, that's not going to happen all the time. You really have to look for underlying causes of disease, and it could be a little bit of spirituality, or it could be a little bit of a mental, outlook, and I asked him also. I said, especially if they're a high stage, I asked them, how is your spiritual relationship with with whoever you worship.
One of the things that you were going to talk about in the article is, and I'll just read it to see what you mean by this. Should I reach out if I have also lost hope?
Yes, because if you reach out and help someone else, it actually helps you. Okay?
I believe that.
Right. Because, that's the whole the concept of the, let's say, addictions recovery, and why recovering addicts, go to meetings and stuff, because they're suffering from the same disease, and they can relate to each other, So if someone has has lost hope, just call somebody and tell them, I'm really feeling like there's no hope. And you'd be surprised that you might call somebody, a friend of yours, and they might just say to you, "Geez, I've been feeling the same way. Let's talk."
Well, I think about it over the years, and Kerry, maybe you might have a comment on this also, that I don't remember people calling our organization with the kind of a problem that you're talking about, Dr. Kilday, about what you're talking about today when it comes to addiction and maybe alcohol.
But really, there's a lot of organizations out there that help with various things, like with weight loss, for instance. I guess like I mentioned the organizations. You have like Weight Watchers, and most people don't realize that they meet on a weekly basis. And I've never been to one, but I'm assuming that they're a group that know each other and they share what they've gone through for the week, or share what they made and what they cooked and whether they were successful or they got to tweak something. So it's a camaraderie. It was the sharing of their problem that they were having at the time.
Kerry, do you want to talk about the fact when you went to Alcoholics Anonymous?
No, I haven't been there, Joe. Thank God. But what I was going to say, when you were talking about it, I was thinking about the idea that we've talked about here about setting up the fibromyalgia support group, because one of the problems that happens for people, and I think what Dr. Kevin is talking about is exactly this point. I always like to say the enemy's trick is to try to make us feel like we're the only one going through this. We're the only one that has this level of a problem. Or we're the only one that's having this pain, or nobody around me understands what I'm going through. And yet the answer is very much the same as they told us in elementary school: raise your hand and ask the question, because there must be 10 other students in class thinking that same question that you think is too stupid to ask. But it's almost the same thing. So when people get on the phone with somebody, say, "Yeah, I'm going. Let me tell you, I had this problem. So everybody gets a chance to vent a little bit, get that part of it through, and it leaves everybody with even if there's no solutions right there on the table immediately. I think there's a spiritual solution, because you've been able to get it off your chest. You've realized you're not the only person that's going through something right now, and that somehow together we are going to get through all of this."
Right. A lot of people don't realize too. I can't say a lot of people, but people in general may not realize that there are a lot of answers in the Bible. So
Amen.
If I'd like to make a suggestion to, for people to maybe turn off the news for a day, and just try to relax. And I'm not saying read the Bible all day long, but you can go through Psalms, you can go through Proverbs, and find a a lot of help just through those two areas in the Bible alone. They're filled with a lot of philosophy, how to live your daily life, and I got to admit too, I am a news watcher, but now I'm just trying to limit it to like one taped show a day. Because it was getting out of hand. I just had whatever channel, Fox or something on, like in the background, like all day. And I'm saying to myself, well, why am I trying to hear, this, a lot of the stuff that's rehashed over and over, just different hosts. But I just said to myself, well, I'm just going to tape one early evening, and that would be enough. A half-hour show, and just get the the world news, and that's it. So you find out when you turn off the TV or change your routine, because you're home and you're and you're isolated or you're sheltering in place. Does not mean just sit there and just watch TV all day. I mean, it's not a good thing. It's a good thing to start thinking about what hobbies you like, or if other people in the house, maybe play some games with them, and and things like that.
This is a good time to insert the since you're talking about the power of prayer, and it's something we can never underestimate. And if my recollection is correct, I like to read Psalms, and Psalm 50, I think it is the one that's called Trust in God. And that's exactly what you're talking about here in your article today, is trust in God. And we have to have a trust in something other than ourselves, because we never make it all alone. We need help. We're people.
Absolutely.
Like I was talking about Proverbs before, and I'd like to read one real quick, if you all don't mind.
We don't have much time.
All right. This is Proverbs 4:20-22. I will listen closely to God's word. I will not let them out of my sight. I will keep them within my heart, for they are life to all who find them, and health for the whole body. So just listen closely to God's word.
Thank you, Dr. Kilday. It's a joy and pleasure to have you here. I like doing a half-hour show like this because it gives us a chance to really concentrate on one aspect at a time. But I thank you for being with us today. And folks, if you got a question, call us to the office at 321-473-7770. We'll be happy to put you in touch with Dr. Kilday. See you next week.